Hello and welcome to my video 102 Hundos in Pokemon Go. This is basically sort of a introduction or showing off, if you will, of all my Hundo Pokemon in my Pokemon Go roster. Now they all have names and they all have a wide range of inspiration for these names. Just anything I can think of where I just research the Pokemon and just try to come up with ideas. Lots and lots of ideas. Some of them are easier to think of, some of them not so easy. Some of them I came up with long before I got the idea for this video. When I did come up with the idea for this video, I wanted to name all of them. And when I again came up with that idea, it was some months back, 1 or 2 I think, and originally it's going to be 101 Hundos in Pokemon Go, but between me getting the idea and now, I got another one, so yay me! Now I've been in Pokemon for a long time, so some of these Hundos are quite old, and not all of them, some of them all have like some interesting stories behind them, and they're all obtained in different ways. I think there's like 1 or 2, probably only 1 really, that I got through trading and it's not even a lucky either, which is quite amazing. Most of them probably came from hatching or raids, some of them from tasks and some from the wild, but without further ado, let's meet the roster. Now we're going from oldest to youngest, and first we have here Hephaestus. He was caught in a raid. Now I remember this because way back when I didn't know any good places to raid, so I would just go around doing any raids that I could do on my own. So I got him as a Magmar from a raid that I did on my own. See there, you can see the Premier Ball. It's amazing I actually kept him, because way back then I wasn't, for me checking stats wasn't really a thing that I'd done, so the fact I still have him is quite something. And here you can see perfect stats. Magmar is probably one of my favourite fire type Pokemon. I just think he's really cute. He's a lovable fire ducky. Not so much a fan of Magmortar, but whatever, I kept him. He's still cool. Next in the roster is Fugaku. Now, Fugaku is a Japanese supercomputer, and, well, the reason for them is pretty obvious. Porygon Z is like a sort of virtual computer sort of Pokemon. And so, there you go, that's where I got his name from. Now, I'm really certain that I actually caught him as a Porygon from a raid, but the egg down here shows a green egg, insinuating I hatched him, so, maybe I did hatch him, I don't know. Here's his perfect stats, and there you go. Next up is Akurukami. I got this name from a giant octopus-like monster from folklore. I was sort of looking around for sort of octopus in like folklore or mythology. Came across this one, liked the name, picked it. Have problems pronouncing it, so there you go. You would have thought I'd picked something easier to say, but oh well, I'm stuck with the name now and I like it anyway. I originally caught her in a raid solo, and I've held on to her for a very long time. Here's her perfect stats, and on to the next one in my roster. Here we have Cuchulainn. Now, Cuchulainn is a hero from like Irish mythology. And the name, I picked it because 1, I think it's a cool name, and 2, he's a fighting type, so yeah, why not? I couldn't really think of anything else. Now, I originally hatched him. The animation actually appeared on my phone right on New Year's Day, but obviously technically I hatched him on the 31st, so It was a nice New Year's present. I was very happy to get him because I love Galade and Gardevoir, and I didn't hesitate to come up with the name, and I saved him for a very, very long time because originally when I hatched him, Galade hadn't even been released yet. Here's his perfect stats. Next in the roster is Jaws. Now, I really don't have to explain how I got this name, did I? No? Good. I hatched him. Isn't that lovely? Next in the roster is Varnaboris. Now, I got this name from the divine beast Varnaboris from the Legend of Zelda. Varnaboris looks like a giant camel. Camerupt looks like a camel. Why not? Now, I originally got her from a field research task, but the weird thing is, it shows unknown. Now, I don't know why that is, but I got her from a task in the UK. Can't remember what stop. How would I anyhow? Why it says unknown, I don't know. Strange, it's some sort of glitch in the game. Meh, whatever. Here's her perfect stats. Next in the roster we have Oedipus Rex. Now, anyone who has played the Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped game would know where this name came from. For those of you who haven't, Oedipus Rex is an optional level that is accessed through the level Dynamite, and in both of those levels you face these pterodactyl-like enemies, and Aerodactyl, looking rather like a pterodactyl himself, that's where I got the name from. He was again caught through a field research task. For some reason again I've got that unknown thing here. I don't know why it's there. It's so strange. If anyone knows why that happens, I'd love to know. Here's his perfect stats. Next up in the roster is Rockisect. I got this name from Kabutop's rock typing and from Genesect. Now, you're probably wondering why Genesect, but Kabutops is rumoured, and let's be frank, most likely the Pokemon that led to the creation of Genesect, so it's basically a combination of Rock and Genesect. Now, Rockisect also has that weird glitch that says unknown, and after pausing the video and doing a little bit of googling, apparently this is a common glitch that happened to 2018 Pokemon that were encountered through research encounters, and it just doesn't have the catch data and location for whatever reason, so yeah, I answered my own question in the end. Here's his stats. Next up in the roster we have Jessie. Now, originally I couldn't come up with any idea names for a Blissey whatsoever. I thought about it, and in the end I decided to name her after the Team Rocket member. The reason for this is Jessie originally, as we know, attended a school for Chanseys, and she befriended a Chansey there that later went on to evolve into a Blissey. And so there, that's where I got the name from. I was really stuck for ideas on this one. Again, that weird glitch, unknown. I caught her from a research encounter. Very happy with that, I was. I thought, oh, she's going to make a really good gym defender as a Blissey. Funny enough, I don't actually use her that much anymore, but still, she's awesome. Here's her perfect stats. Next up, we have Sharknado. Now, again, I really don't have to explain this one, do I? I don't? Fantastic. And I hatched her from an egg, just like I did with Jaws. Isn't that nice? Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Femme Fatale. Now, I vividly remember catching her because she was my first Hundo catch in the wild. It's very possible I had Hundo catches in the wild before, but I accidentally transferred them way back when I didn't check stats. Oopsie, that's painful to think of. I got her name from the Lord's Mobile character, Femme Fatale, and this came about through several reasons. Firstly, Femme Fatale, her name is Thorn and roses have thorns. Secondly, Femme Fatale has a whip, and on that, atop that is a red rose. They both wear green as well, or at least in Rose Red's case, she is green, and their hairstyles are very similar looking as well. Ironically, one of the things that Femme Fatale can say in the game is sort of perfection and that this sort of seductive voice, so that's pretty ironic considering that here we have a perfect Rose Raid, and I named her after a character in Lord's Mobile who just goes perfection. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Perfection.
See there? Caught her in the wild as a Rosalia, obviously. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Morpheus. Now, yes, he is named after the character from the Matrix. Because of the sunglasses, what else? And I caught him from research on the first Squirtle Community Day. Cool! See? Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Blaze Falcon. Now, I really love Yu-Gi-Oh! And I really love the Raid Raptor monsters, so he is named after Raid Raptor Blaze Falcon. What more is there to say? I got him from a raid. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Blaze Falcon. Now, I'm a huge fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! I've loved Yu-Gi-Oh! For years, so this is where the name inspiration came from. The name coming from Raid Raptor Blaze Falcon. I absolutely love the Raid Raptors. It was a given that I was going to come up with a Raid Raptor name for Moltres, a giant bird. The Raid Raptors are giant birds. Don't mess with them, it'd be a fool's endeavour. I got Blaze Falcon from a raid, obviously. Here's their stats. Next up we have Misfit. Oh, that was bad. Next up we have Misfit Yellow. Now you're probably wondering, how on earth did you come up with a name like that? Well, I'll tell you. Originally when I came up with the ideas for this video and I was like, I have to name all these Pokemon, I was super stuck on the idea for a name for an Articuno. So I decided to turn to Rob Graham, who is a voice actor. He voices my favourite Lord's Mobile character, Demon Slayer, and he also has a fantastic YouTube channel. He really loves Articuno, so I thought, well, maybe he's got a good idea. And these were the two suggestions thrown my way, with Yellow meaning ice, and Misfit because, as he so eloquently put, you're clearly on Team Valor. And I'm like, wait, why does being on Team Valor make me a misfit? When his response was, no, I was referring to Articuno. Valor's mascot is Moltres. Honestly, I got a really good chuckle at just the suggestion of Misfit and why he came up with it. In the end, I decided to go for both of them because I couldn't pick, and I thought, well, they fit together nicely. So, there you go. Another raid catch. This was probably about the time when all the birds were in raids and I was just going around like a mad woman trying to get as many as possible. Here's the Misfits perfect stats. Next up we have another legendary bird, Lord Hamon. Now this is another Yu-Gi-Oh inspiration, this time coming from Hamon, Lord of Striking Thunder. Not really much to say there really. Hamon, Lord of Striking Thunder, Zapdos, Thunderbird, it fits. Another raid catch. Here's their perfect stats. Next up we have RR Echonja. Now this is another Yu-Gi-Oh inspiration for this name, with RR actually supposed to be Raid Raptor Echonja Falcon. Now I obviously had to shorten the name because there's a character limit, but at least I was able to come up with a name that I could both shorten to a way that I liked and, well, a name that I liked. Another raid catch. Ooh, lots of raiding around that time, eh? Here's the perfect stats. Next up we have Right Round. Now it's pretty obvious how I came up with that name. It's a Spinder. Couldn't think of anything else. Bam, that's what I went for. I got it from research, because basically that's where all Spinder comes from, is research. Here's his perfect stats. Next up is Fat Guava. Now, when Lickitung had its own raid day, I was going around that, yay, time to catch some fat bananas, because Lickitung just looks like a fat banana in its shiny form. It's yellow. Now obviously this is not shiny, so I decided to go another pinky fruit, guava. So here we go, Fat Guava. Now I hatched her. She wasn't from that raid day. Obviously that raid day was much further along in, like, I think 2020 I think it was. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Prometheus, obviously the legendary Greek god who gave fire to humans. That's where I got the name from. Pretty easy to come up with that one. I've decided not to evolve him because I've already got a Hundo Magmortar, and I would like a Hundo Magby as well, so I've got the whole family as Hundos. Caught him from research. Didn't get him from a raid this time. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Fool's Funnel. Now this name came from a kind of poisonous mushroom. Breloom is the mushroom Pokemon, so there you go. Pretty self-explanatory. I originally got her from an egg hatch. Here's her perfect stats. Not much else to say really. Next up we have Phelps. Now how I got him, there's a really cool story behind it. So I'll go to do my first Weasel raid upon release. Beat it, catch him, check stats. My word, it's a Hundo. Literally my first Weasel raid. Hundo. I've still got the screenshots to prove it because I put them all over Twitter and I will show you them. Pretty lucky, eh? Now the name Phelps obviously comes from the Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps. As I said, got him in a raid. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Kaito. Now I got this name from the fact that Mantine is known as the Kite Pokemon, and one of my favourite Yu-Gi-Oh characters is Kaito Tenjo, and Kaito means kite, so there you go. Funny enough here, Kaito is a female and the Yu-Gi-Oh character is a male, but I don't care. hatched her from an egg. There's her perfect stats. Next up we have Baby Spark. Oh, I couldn't think of anything. It's a baby Pikachu. It makes little sparks. Baby Spark. Naturally I hatched her because there really isn't any other way to get baby Pokemon apart from hatching them. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Star Cestus. Now this is another Yu-Gi-Oh! Inspired name. It comes from number 105, Battling Boxer Star Cestus. In Japanese the battling boxers were known as the Burning Knucklers, which is objectively a much better name, but I'm just going to give you the English name here. I shortened it to Star Cestus anyway, and that appears in both the Japanese and English name. I got him from research. Very pleased about that because he is like a staple in any teams or any time I need a strong fighting type. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have the cute little Cula. Now I got that name from the PS1 game Cula World, where you roll a beach ball around these obstacles, and as you roll sort of bounces around on its beach ball looking tail, so that's where I got the name from. Obviously I hatched her because there's no other way to get baby Pokemon in the game. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Karkinos. Now Karkinos is a giant sea crab that aided Hydra in its battle against Hercules. Heatran is a crab monster, and when I was looking for a name for my Heatran, I decided to look for crabs in mythology to see if I could come up with anything. Stumbled across Karkinos. Well, that's a really cool sounding name. It fits, so I went with it. He was obtained from a raid. And here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Genganar. Now Genganar is a Danish word for ghost from Scandinavian folklore, and may not be inspiration for the name Gengar. I like the name. When I originally found the word I thought, yeah, that's a fitting name, so I went for it. I originally hatched her. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Tawaki. Now Tawaki is a kind of penguin. Empoleon is obviously heavily influenced by penguins, so there you go, that's the name. Not really much to say there really. I hatched him, and here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Dark Matters. Now Dark Matters is the name of an album from a Finnish band called Rasmus, and the Rasmus are my favourite band. You may or may not have realised that they've inspired my username. She was caught from a Team Rocket Grunt encounter. I purified her, knowing she'd go into a Hundo. Loved Tyranitar. Wanted a Hundo Tyranitar. Got one. Brilliant. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Cerberus. Now, pretty obvious where I got this name from. The three-headed hound that guards the underworld. This was another catch from a Rocket Grunt encounter. I purified her again, knowing that she would go into a Hundo. Houndoom's awesome. Will be awesome from when I want to Mega Houndoom. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Marnula. This is the Japanese name for Weavile. Now when I was on Weavile's page on Bulbapedia looking for some possible name inspirations, I saw it and thought, actually, you know what, I really like the sound of that name. I'm gonna go for it. I caught him from some field research. This is his perfect stats. Next up we have Gone Tomorrow. Now I got this name from the fact that one day you can just go into the snowy mountains and the next day you could be gone tomorrow because you're going to die soon and this is going to come up to you and steal your spirit. Whoa, creepy. I got her from a research encounter, and when I originally got her I was like, do I evolve into a Glalie or Frostus? You know what, I'll save it. And if you're wondering how I decided to come to the conclusion, oh, I'm going to evolve into Frostless, you'll find out in a bit. Here's the perfect stats. Next up we have Bubbly Buoy. Now, the name comes from one of its moves, Bubble, and Buoy coming from that part of Azumaril's inspiration, maybe from a life buoy. Also, it's a male buoy, kind of similar to boy. I don't know, I really couldn't come up with anything else. I'm not really a fan of this Pokemon much. I mean, I don't like it, I don't dislike it, I'm just mostly disinterested. I received it from an egg, from an egg gift from a friend. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Bubbly Buoy. The name comes from one of its moves, Bubble, and Buoy, which could be one of the inspirations behind Azumaril's design. I know it's not much of a name really, I couldn't think of anything else. I don't like or dislike this Pokemon, I'm pretty indifferent and I just didn't want to linger on the name for too long. I hatched him from an egg that I got from a gift, so that's why it says it was hatched in Thailand. And I've never been there. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Frozen Death. Now, how did I get him, you're wondering? Well, I got him from some field research, not as a Snorunt, literally as a Glalie. And this research I remember was... no. Next up we have Frozen Death. Now, this is the reason why I picked Frostless for this Snorunt, because I got this lovely Glalie here from some field research. Literally a Glalie, I didn't have to evolve him. The research, if I remember correctly, was trade a Pokemon. When I pick whatever research I want to do, I will generally go for A, random encounters to get shinies or hundos, or B, if I need it, items. So there you go, the decision was made for me. Straight up just got a Hundo Glalie from research. Called it Frozen Death. It's an ice type. You can die from being frozen to death. I know, it's not much of a name, but there you go. See there, caught from research. Here's his perfect stats. Next up, we have Robushin. Robushin is the Japanese name for Conkeldurr. Now, when I was on Conkeldurr's Bulbapedia page looking for name inspiration, I saw that, thought, oh yeah, that's a really cool name, and knowing that I will probably not find any other name inspiration, I took it and I ran with it. When Timber originally came out, I was raiding for it, looking for one, to get for really good stats, and within my third Timber raid, I got a Hundo! Yay, lucky me! Reminded me of the time when I got my first Weasel, and that was a Hundo. Very, very lucky. See there? Got her from a raid. Here's her perfect stats. Next up is Pindo. Pindo is a kind of palm tree. Executor got its design inspiration obviously from palm trees. Pretty self-explanatory there. I got her from a Rocket Grunt encounter. purified because I know I'd get a hundo. And kabam, here she is. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Graham Game. Now remember me mentioning how I went to Rob Graham for some name inspirations for an Articuno because I was totally stuck and he really loves that Pokemon? Well, here's another Pokemon he loves. Umbreon. He loves it so much. Now if you've ever seen his Pokemon Snap playthrough, that's the new one, you'll know how much he loves Umbreon. I think he mentions every single episode, oh, I've got to get an Umbreon. The last episode is when he finds one. I know, spoiler, but still, go and watch that series right now. Anyhow, when I evolved my first Hundo Eevee into an Umbreon, I was like, well, what do I call it? Oh, it's a really cute Pokemon. I have to come up with a great name for it. Oh, I know what. I'll name it after Rob Graham's YouTube channel, Valen9. And a few weeks later, what does he do? Announces that he's completely overhauling his channel, giving it a new look and a new name. Oh, okay. I guess I'm going to have to name this lovely Umbreon here now. New name comes out. And he gets renamed, so now Valen9 is known as Graham Game. Can you just imagine that being your text alert? You know, just sitting there and the next thing your phone's like, meow. I don't know why I find that so funny. You know what, I should probably set my text alert to Absol's battle cry. Oh, I don't know why I find that so funny being someone's, I think you can guess who, text alert. I got him from some field research. And here's his perfect stats. I nearly forgot to mention, Graham Game is actually my first level 50 Pokemon. Next up we have Athos. Now I got that name from the leader of the Three Musketeers. Cobalin is the leader of the Swords of Justice, whose inspiration clearly comes from the Three Musketeers, so pretty straightforward. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Shadow Bride. Now I like battling the grunts in Pokemon Go. I also like getting a radar so I can battle Arlo. And on my way just getting another radar, come across the grunt, battle it, and get this Shadow Roots. Now, looking at the CP on the encounter screen, I knew it was going to be a strong one. Very, very good stats. Surprise! When I go to check how good they are 100% perfect. I didn't even know that could happen. I mean, obviously it could, but I've never seen it before. And here she was, this shadow Pokemon with perfect stats. Took one look at her and was like, well, that happened. See there, got her from a grunt. Here's her perfect stats. And the name is pretty self-explanatory. Gardevoir looks like a bride. She's a shadow Pokemon. Yay me for all my names. Next up we have Purity Bride. Now, I originally caught her as a Shadow Waltz only about 12 hours after I originally caught Shadow Bride. Again, when I was at the encounter screen, I knew she was going to be pretty strong. Not perfect, because I obviously knew what the perfect CP for a Shadow Waltz was. But looking at her stats, I knew she'd purify into a Hundo, so I did. There's Shadow Bride, now we have Purity Bride. Yay, a pair of sisters that's going to make your day really, really miserable. Again, obviously, got her from a grunt. Here's her perfect stats. Next up, we have Lantis. Now, I got the name Lantis because this is what Kabutops was originally known as in the Pokemon Red and Blue Beta. And the name is obviously derived from Atlantis. Yeah, there you go. I found this out from the Bulbapedia entry for Kabutops, and I was just stuck for some inspiration from Atlantis. Is a nice sounding name. I'll take it. I hatched him from a gift egg, and here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Faunus. Faunus is a Greek god of the forest, plains and fields, so that's where I got the name inspiration. Faunus was a battle reward from the Pokemon Go Battle League, and I remember him giving me lots and lots and lots and lots of trouble catching him. I wanted to catch him with a Pinap berry so I'd get the extra candies. I was using Ultra Balls, go through lots of Pokeballs, lots of yellow berries, and some silvers, and I finally caught that awkward sod. It's a really good job he has perfect stats, because I probably would have released him if they weren't, because he annoyed me so much. There, got it from the Battle League, like I said, you can see from the Ultra Ball. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Uru now. This is another Yu-Gi-Oh! Inspired name from Earthbound Immortal Uru, who looks like a giant spider. Now I know Galvantula is based off a tarantula, but it's close enough. I don't care. At least it's an easy name for me to say. Not like some of these. I can't remember if it was from the wild. Was it from the wild? Yeah, I think it was actually. Quite soon after it originally came out as well, which is cool. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Luciola. Now, when I caught her, I was really happy because Illumise is a regional Pokemon, but at the time there was an event going around where their Illumise and Volbeat shinies were released, and for a short while they was appearing globally. So when I got my Hundo Illuma, I was like, yes, brilliant! Don't have to worry about getting one with good stats now, because I've got one. And Luciola is a kind of firefly, so that's where I got the name from. Got her in the wild, yay me! And here's her perfect splash. Next up we have Lampris. Now, when I caught him, I was like, oh, I've got a Hundo boyfriend for my Hundo Illumise. Isn't that precious? And Lampris is obviously a firefly. So, another name inspiration that was pretty straightforward. Caught in the wild. Here's his perfect stats. And next up we have Bonnie, and yeah, I know it's a pretty bland name, but honestly I was super stuck when naming this. I was like, oh, what do I call her? I originally wanted to call her Butch, as the name from the dog from Tom and Jerry cartoon, but it's a girl, so I couldn't really do that. And I thought, oh, Bonnie, I'll go for that. I'm not going to keep lingering on this. Caught her in the wild. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Minty. Now you're probably wondering where I got that name from. And I got it from a moth that's known as the Southern Purple Mint Moth. Venonat's based off moths, so there you go, straightforward name inspiration. I got her from a grunt. I purified her, knowing that the stats would increase to Hundo stats if I did so, and went ahead with it. Here's her perfect stats. Next up is Willow 100. Now, the 100 comes from the fact I put it on the end of the name so when she was my buddy, everyone could see that she was a hundo. And Willow is the name of my dearly departed darling cat Willow, who passed away in January 2020 when I was clearing out my stored research encounters. I caught her and checked her stats and yay, hundo, and immediately decided to call her Willow, again after my dearly departed cat. Yeah, obviously that doesn't give you much information, but yeah, I remember she came from a research encounter. I didn't want to evolve her because I just wanted to keep her looking like a cute little cat, basically. Oh, she's adorable, isn't she? My baby girl. Here's her perfect stats. Up we have pyrrhotite. Now, this name, it comes from an iron sulfide mineral that is also known as magnetic pyrite. Pretty self-explanatory. Mineral name. It's a rock Pokemon. Not much more to say. I hatched her from an egg, from a gift, and I actually know who sent the gift based on the location, and I thanked them on Twitter, and they were a bit confused at first, like, thanks I guess, and I was like, explained to them, I got this Pokemon from an egg, from a gift that you sent. I was like, oh, that's cool. So there you go. Here's her perfect stats. And next we have Eubank. The name is pretty self-explanatory, from the famous boxer Chris Eubank. I got him from a grunt encounter, hit purified because I knew I'd get hundo stats, and yeah, there's not really much more to say really. Here's Eubank's perfect stats. Next up we have Baku. Now that name comes from the Dream Eater spirits from Japanese mythology, and I got that idea from Hypno's Bulbapedia page. Couldn't think of anything else really, saw that and yeah, went for that. I obviously got him from a grunt, purified, become a hundo. Pretty much the same story with all my other purified hundos. Here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Aurora Bright. Now the name comes from Aurora because Suicune is known as the Aurora Pokemon, and I just added the bright on to the end because I thought it sounded really nice. Now I got her from a Giovanni encounter, and seeing her stats, I knew she'd go up into a hundo, and Suicune is actually my favourite legendary Pokemon, so it was really a no-brainer. Here's her perfect stats, and this Pokemon took me a super duper long time to max. I had her as a buddy for so long, but it was so super satisfying to finally max her out. Next up we have Splinter, and I got the name inspiration from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Can't say much more than that really. I hatched him from an egg, which kind of made me chuckle a little bit. Yay, perfect rat! Lovely! Here's the Master's perfect stats. Next up we have Snuggles. Now you're probably thinking, where did you get that daft name from? And my response to that is, don't you dare call my precious Swampert daft. He's lovely, he's perfect. Don't mock him. I decided to call him Snuggles because Swampert's my favourite water-type Pokemon. I think they're totally adorable. I'd totally snuggle with a Swampert. They're so cute. Obviously, I got him from a Rocket Grunt Not gonna repeat the story because you've heard it several times by now. And here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Desmodo. I got that name after much searching for something that I thought would both be cool and suitable for a vampire bat, like Crobat, and Desmodo actually comes from Desmodus draculae, which is a kind of extinct vampire bat. I just tweaked the name slightly to fit, and there you go, so I got my name from. I hatched him, which was another little chuckle for me. Yay, Hundos is back from an egg, isn't this great? Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Inertia. Now when I was looking up a name for my Slarking here, I first looked up different words for lazy to start off with some inspiration. I liked inert, but then I decided to change it to Inertia to just make the name even cooler, basically. I got him from a egg hatch, which is nice surprise as always. And here's Mr. Lazy's perfect stats. Next up we have Okiragari. Now that name comes from the Okiragari Kobashi doll, which is a kind of traditional Japanese doll. I couldn't think of anything else, so that's what I went for. You can see where I got her from, so I'm just going to show you and not repeat the story. Here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Castle M. Now that name comes from a Crash Bandicoot level, Castle Machinery, because the Pokemon reminds me of one of the enemies that you encounter in the level, and obviously I had to shorten it down to Castle M because not enough space. I hatched it, and here's the perfect stats. And next up we have Buglight. This is another name taken from my Crash Bandicoot level, specifically here Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, and I think it's what the very last level in the very last warp room, and the name of the level comes from the fact that you need a little firefly to light up the dark paths for you, and if you get hit or it flies away, you're left in the dark. Makes the relic very fun. I hatched him, and here's his perfect stats. And next up we have Treasure. This is a trash cloak wormadam. Another man's trash is another man's treasure. Straightforward. I hatched her from an egg, and here's her perfect stats. And next we have here Lord Darrigan. This name comes from the leader of the Darrigan Citadel on Neopets. Now I've not actually played Neopets in a long time, but trying to pick a name for my lovely purified Gliscor here, I immediately thought of that because he's a similar colour to the Lord Darrigan character. And Lord Darrigan's species is a Corbat, if I remember rightly. He's been described as bat-like or Corbat-like, and, well, Gliscors are bats, aren't they, so it fits really nicely. And here's his perfect stats. And next up we have the only shiny on this, basically in the roster, LaRousse 100, and again the 100 was for the benefit of showing off to my friends that this is a perfect Pokemon, and the name LaRousse comes from the high-tech city from the movie Destiny Deoxys, which is actually my favourite Pokemon movie. So as soon as I caught the Deoxys, I was like, yep, I know what I want to name them. Unfortunately, I had to stylize it like this because Yep. And it took me a while to figure out why that keeps happening, and I finally got it. It's because there's a rouse in the name. Even though it's 2 S's, it still gets hit for being inappropriate. Stupid. I know. Naturally, I got the Deoxys from a raid. And here's the perfect stats. Also, my first ever Shundo. Took me a while, but I got it. And I knew as soon as that encounter screen came up, oh my gosh, it's a Shundo, yay! Next up we have Bowser. Now, I don't really need to explain his name, do I? No, I don't. Cheers! He was caught from research or in the wild. Pretty sure it was research. Power up 5 Pokemon, I believe. And here's his stats. All lovely and perfect. Next up we have Cherry Moya. Cherry Moya is a kind of fruiting tree, and yeah, that's about it really. Cherry Moya, it's a nice name. She was a wild catch. And here's her perfect stats. Oh, look at her, bouncy, bouncy, so happy. Cute. Next we have Cheeks. It's got really big, fat cheeks like a gerbil. I really couldn't think of anything. I think that's quite obvious. I got her from research, I think. Maybe wild, could be research. Either way, here's the perfect stats. Next up we have Positive. Again, this was another name where I was just struggling to think of anything. Plusle has it's obviously got the cross symbol on its cheeks and represents a positive charge, so I just went for Positive. Meh. And I remember this being a wild encounter. Hey, see there? Caught in the wild. And there's the perfect stats. At least I'll know now when I go through these. Next up we have Sarabi. This name comes from the Lion King character, who is the mate and wife of Mufasa and the mother of Simba. Now obviously the more of us one would see him like Nala, but I decided to go for Sarabi instead because I think it's a nicer name. She was an egg hatch. And here's her perfect stats. Next we have Spider Demon, and this was another one where I was sort of struggling for name inspiration, but like the classic Doom enemy, Metagross is, well, all metal, pretty menacing, has 4 legs, so does the Spider Demon, and that's what I went for. Now I know it's also known as the Spider Mastermind, but I can't fit Spider Mastermind in, and I'm not going to abbreviate it, so I'll just go for Spider Demon, which actually fits. And look, it's a gift from Arlo, isn't he kind? Took ages to get a shiny from you, you little sod. And here's the perfect stats. Next up we have Marumine. That is the Japanese name for Electrode, and I went with that because again I was really stuck for names for an Electrode. I was thinking of Claymore at first, which is a kind of landmine, but Claymore is also a name for a sword, so I decided to go for Marumine instead. And that name is like a combination of 2 words. The first part meaning circle, and the second part meaning mine, basically, so it's like a circular mine. Electrode is known for being unpredictable and exploding, much like a landmine, so it fits nice enough. It was a wild catch, and it was actually one of the wild catches for the smallest CP I've ever had. It was originally something really, really low, like 16. I'd have to try and find the picture. It's really funny. It's a good job I checked it instead of just like, oh, crap CP. Release! And there's the perfect stats. And next up we have Inari. Inari is a Japanese god in their mythology, being known as the protector of rice fields. I caught him from a remote raid, and I remember this very well because it was when I was at an optician's appointment to have my eyes checked and have my prescription updated. Yeah, my eyesight is horrendous. Anyhow, I was waiting for my turn and I thought, you know what, I'll do a Landorus remote raid. Win the raid, catch, surprise, it's a hundo. That's cool. Yep, see, caught remotely. A raid even says specifically remotely. Nice update there. And here's his perfect stats. Oh, next up, it's Hundo Pride. Absol is my absolute favourite Pokemon. I adore and love this Pokemon. It's just so beautiful and perfect. And people just treat it so horrendously. They're only trying to help. Don't be horrible. Anyhow, the name Hundo Pride comes from, obviously, Hundo, and the pride bit is because I named my first shiny Absol Joyous Pride. So I thought, you know what, we've got Joyous Pride, we've got Shadow Pride, let's have Hundo Pride. Why the heck not? And she was a 12km egg hatch. Now, considering I only ever fight Arlo, it would have come from him, so thank you, Arlo. I waited a long time for this one. And here's my most perfect girl's stats. Next up we have Frolac. Now, I can't take credit for this name. It's a really great name, and when I was going to name my Sirfetch'd, I was super stumped for ideas. I was like, what on earth do I name him? And then I thought, wait, what did Rob Graham name his in his Pokemon Sword playthrough? Oh, that's right, he named it Frolac, and his is actually a girl. So as he said, a man-fetched, not a Sirfetch'd. Funny enough, Frolac was nearly hate my life. Because Galarian, Farfetch'd, looks like they just hate everything. And well, they do look really, really grumpy. And this was from a 7km egg that I got from a friend's gift. And here's his perfect stats. And next up we have Hyzanthely. This name I got from a female character on Watership Down. Lopunny's a rabbit. Straightforward. And she was a food research catch. Here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Eatos. He was a egg hatch, and I named him after the Greek word for eagle. Eagles happen to be my favourite birds as well, so that's great. I think I got him round about the time the shiny Rufflet came out. And obviously I was trying to hatch as many of the eggs as possible to get a shiny. Didn't get one, but I got a Hundo, which is, in a way, even better. Yep, 10km egg hatch. And here's the perfect stats. Next up we have Silica. Silica is predominantly a material that comprises part of sand, and it's a sand slash, not the Alolan one, so the ground one. And yeah, that's where I got the name from. It was a fairly easy pick, really. I wasn't struggling on this one. And it was a wild catch. Here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Bauble. Now, this is sort of it's not sort of a pun. I was thinking of something bubble related, and then thought, oh, hold on, how about Bauble instead? It sort of sounds like bubble, and the tail on Mario lights up, you know, lights at Christmas. Why not? See, watch. Cute! And I got her during timed research, probably that Mario special research thing. I don't know what you call it. And here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Kushi. Now yes, that is how the name is pronounced. I'm not going mad. And Kushi is a dog from Gaelic mythology, with the name roughly translated to dog fairy. Grand Ball's a dog, it's a fairy type. Perfect fit. And she was caught in the wild. Here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Blade Burner. Now, this is another name inspiration from a Yu-Gi-Oh! Raid Raptor. Obviously, Blade Burner Falcon. Talonflame's a falcon. I mean, even if it wasn't, I wouldn't care less anyway. Still a bird. All the same to me. And she was caught in the wild. And I actually remember where it was very specifically as well. Not going to say where, because, well, I don't live there anymore, but it's a pretty naff area. I don't miss it. Here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Michelangelo. No, not named after the artist, named after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Not much more to say there, really. And another field research catch. Yep, I've got quite a few of these perfect Blastoise. Just one of those things. Here's his perfect stats. And next up we have Amethyst. Amethyst is a purple gemstone and purple Pokemon, so straightforward really. And this was a field research catch. Here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Pink Helium. Wigglytuff is pink. It's a balloon Pokemon. You often fill balloons of helium. There you go. Again, not really much more to say. She was a wild catch. And here's her perfect stats. Next we have Nutria. Nutria is actually a breed of semi-aquatic rodents. And straightforward again, not much else to add really. There's a wild catch. And here's the perfect stats. And next up we have Live Ice Dragon. Now this was a huge surprise. Naturally caught with a grunt encounter. I always wanted a perfect Gyarados. And one day I was at Trafalgar Square, which is a really good place to play Pokemon in the UK, Trafalgar Square. And I done like I said, a Rocket Grunt battle. Go to catch, caught it, check stats, and oh my word, only my second ever perfect Shadow Pokemon. This was an easy choice for a buddy and a quick max out for level 50. Here's the perfect stats, and the name, I nearly forgot, comes from a Yu-Gi-Oh monster, and one of the numbers monsters. It's the Japanese name. I think the English name is now Leviathan Dragon. Next up we have Boulder Dash. And that's another name from a Crash Bandicoot level, the second Boulders level. Those levels are fun, I like those. It was a egg hatch from a friend, possibly my mum. Says England, United Kingdom. And here's his perfect stats. Oh, next up we have Shade. Now, I love Greninja. So when I got this perfect Froakie, I was super stoked. For a while I wasn't sure what to call him, when it suddenly dawned on me, I know what, I can name him after the Lord's mobile character Shade, because he's a ninja, Greninja is a ninja, it fits, and not only that, Shade is super duper cool. Easily one of my favourites. Not as much a favourite as Demon Slayer is. I mean, he's like up the tippity top. And still, Shade is super cool. I actually have him as a desktop pick. And you can't tell me he is not absolutely badass. He was a wild catch. And here's his perfect stats. And next up we have Meme Lord, and this one's pretty self-explanatory. Bidoof mostly, and B-Barrel are like memes, like the Lord of Memes, so yeah, Meme Lord. This was a wild catch, and here's his perfect stats. And next up we have my current buddy as of this video being made, Spike. Manectric is a very spiky Pokemon, so that's where I got the name from. I really couldn't think of anything else. He was caught from a field research encounter because I really want the shiny. Again, no shiny. Got a Hundo instead. Can't complain. Here's his perfect stats. And next up we have HM Slave. I think this one is very, very, very self-explanatory. So I shall say no more. Another wild encounter. And here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Lucid. This name comes from the fact that Hypnos are dream eaters and lucid dreams are a thing, so there you go. Kinda stuck for ideas, but I like the name. And this was obtained from a trade, my only Pokemon obtained from a trade that isn't lucky, but still hundo. And here's his stats. Lovely. And next up we have Menage. Now, if I have to explain where I got this name from, you're either too young to understand, or way, way too innocent. And with that being said, another egg hatch from a gift from a Japanese friend, and here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Donatello, another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Not much more to say there really. This one, however, was a wild catch, not from field research. Makes a difference, I guess. And here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Bugs. Diggersby is a bunny, Bugs Bunny is a bunny, so I went for it. There you go. I'm not really a fan of this Pokemon. It's a hideous creature, isn't it? It's like got a face only a mother could love. Still keeping it though. Never know, it might come in handy one day. This was a wild encounter. And here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Maple Leafia. This name is pretty obvious. Maple is, kind of leaf. Leafia is the Japanese name for Leafian. Put them together, one cute name. Now, I got the idea for this name ages ago, so I held on to that name and was like, right, as soon as I get myself another Hundo Eevee, I'm going to evolve it into a Leafian and call it Maple Leafia. So that's what I did. Now, incidentally, and you're probably not going to believe me, but if you don't, I really don't care. I actually caught him round about in an area called Canada Place. I'm not joking. Canada Place is actually a shopping mall near Canary Wharf, and I used to live somewhat near there, and it's a good place to hunt for Pokemon because you've got a lot of stops and you get a ton of spawns. Good place to play, and I caught him in the wild. Literally right near the shopping mall called Canada Place, with the very obviously Canadian inspired name. Perfect. Literally. Wild catch. And here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Sugimori. Now this is from the surname of the Japanese Pokemon artist, who once said in an interview that Gengar is his favourite Pokemon, or one of them at least, so I decided to name my Gengar after him. I mean, I know my Gengar's a girl, but it's a surname, so who really cares? She was caught in the wild, and here's her perfect stats. Next up we have Arnoldi. Now that name comes from the flower on Venusaur's back, which may be based on the Rafflesia Arnoldi flower. So there you go, for Arnoldi's a nice sounding name. Fits a male as well. And so there you go. He was caught during field research. Again, probably that power up Pokemon 5 times one. Here's his perfect stats. And next up we have Suriname. Now this name comes from a possible inspiration for Seismitoad, the common Suriname toad. I thought, that's a nice sounding name. Can't think of anything else. I'll take it. She was hatched from an egg. And here's her perfect stats. And next we have Charcoal. Really straightforward here, this name inspiration. She's charcoal coloured. I could not think of anything else. And she was caught on the first day of Pokemon Go Fest in 2021. So that's neat. And here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Koko Rimori. That's the Japanese name for Swoobat, and much like some of the others on this roster and in this video, I couldn't think of anything else, so I just decided to go for that. She too was caught in the wild during the first day of Pokemon Go Fest. And here's her perfect stat. His perfect stats. Whoopsie. And next up we have Intracloud. I caught him on the second Eevee Community Day and decided to go for random between Jolteon, Flareon and Vaporeon. Got Jolteon, and then I just went to Google types of lightning to find a name that I liked, because that was the first name and inspiration I came up with, lightning. Decided that I liked Intracloud, and that's the name I went for. Now this technique of picking a name got me a very, very amusing response. Gee, I wonder what you call Espen when you find her. And to that I say, you'll just have to wait. I do have an idea for a female Espen, but you're just gonna have to wait. Sorry! Not really. And he was caught from field research. Yeah, I was picking up a lot of them tasks just to try and get a hundo, and it worked. Here's his perfect stats. Next up we have Caligula. Now that name comes from the Roman Emperor, whose name is actually Gaius Julius Caesar, and Caligula was known for, at least in the sort of latter part of his rule, for being an insane tyrant. Slow King here looks pretty insane and evil, so I thought, I know what, I'll just go for Caligula. Now, I know that this Slow King is actually a Slow Queen, but I still like the name, so I'm sticking with it. She was received from an egg that I got from a gift from a friend, and here's her perfect stats. And next up we have Hatu. That is the Finnish word for hat. This sweet little pip-pop here is wearing a very fetching red hat. Not much more to say. Now, I actually got this Hundo shockingly quick. I'd only caught like 6 of these pip-plops, about that, and got a Hundo in under 10. Really cool. Wild encounter, like I said. And here's his perfect stats. Now last, and not least, we have Jiraiya. This is the Pokemon who made my 101 video go to 102. Now the name is not from Naruto before you get all excited. I actually got the name from a character from a Japanese folk tale. There you go. He was caught in the wild, and here's his perfect stats. And that's the entire roster, all 102 of them, with some stories about how and when I caught them, certain circumstances, blah de blah, their name inspirations. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video. If you did, please leave a like and a comment below. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.